Hello and welcome back to the channel with me, the Orienteering Kid, where today we're in Prague for day 2 of the TORUS training week. Yes, we're here for what is the second day in this week-long series, which is being organised by experienced trailer setters from across Europe. It was an exciting day yesterday, thanks to Dusan and Jan and Pavel for putting that all together. And as always, these events are being found on the Tempo Simulator, the link to which can be found in the description of this video. And yeah, I am really looking forward to today. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of tasks Jana, who the organiser is for today, has managed to come up with. And yeah, let's really just dive straight into it. We are going for the Central European TORUS Training Week section, and we are going for day 2, which today is a 1 to 4,000 map with 2.5 metre contours and 9 stations. There is a 5 metre zero tolerance, so it's slightly different from the 4 metre zero tolerance we've just had, or we've been using so far. There's now a bit more tolerance in that, which is useful for us, and it's another urban area. So the extra instructions for today are the black crosses are playground items and flags are drawn. So not much information, so we're going to be going in fairly blind. It is training, so I'm trying to make it as useful for me as possible, so I haven't done any map geeking beforehand, just so I'm going in completely blind, and we will see exactly how we get on as we go. As always, my answers will be appearing in the top right hand corner of the screen, so you get to see exactly what I'm putting at the moment that I do, and you will get to see any mistakes that I'm making straight away. As we saw yesterday, I'm not perfect, I do make a few of them. I think I made 3 overall yesterday plus the miss punch. So yeah, let's see what happens today as we go into day 2 of the TORUS training week. And here is station 1. Okay, we have the trees at the front. There's walls, looks like curved with grass open area. It's on the bush that we can't see. On that bit of wall it's echo. On the first tree, I can believe that is Alpha. On the furthest away tree, Bravo's on the other side of the road, and they're on the grass just in front of us. Yeah, that was quite a nice opening station. The first task was quite interesting, throwing us on a bush behind the wall that we could see. Obviously there was a bush on the wall that Foxtrot was on, but I think it was clear that Foxtrot was on the wall rather than the bush behind it. And also the second and third tasks, I could only see 2 trees in the photo, but Alpha was clearly on the first tree right in front of us, in my opinion. And for the second task being on the third tree along, Bravo was on the other side of the path, so it couldn't have been Bravo, and if it's already been Alpha, then it's got to be a 0. So yeah, that was a very good first station, and we will now go on to station 2. Okay, so we have the bushes, we have the paths coming in, we have this tree right in front of us. It'll be the first tree end of the fence. That's got to be a fence there with Charlie right down the fence. Could it be there? That seems too far away. First tree, that bush by Foxtrot, and that bush. Where's the centre of the circle? Oh, it's got to be Bravo. So yeah, that was a good second station. I think the one thing that threw me there was with that final task, it looked like the end of the bush was further down than it should have been, but I think that was just the contour covering up the green a bit. I don't know if it was meant to do that, but that just slowed me down slightly, not too much. I think the second task being on the fence was clear. I think the control circle was too far along the fence in comparison to where the path was, and I think that's why the 5 metre tolerance was in for that task. I think that was to try and clearly show that that was in the wrong place. But it looks like this picture for station 3 is going to be too big, so I'm going to resize, and we are now going to go into station 3. Okay, the trees, you've got the paths coming through, tree on the left hand side, bush on the right with Foxtrot. We want this path, we want that corner. It's Charlie, we want that tree at the back. I'm going to have to believe that one is Bravo. That's the wrong bush.
Is that the right tree? Yep. And that's the wrong tree.
That was a good station 3. There's quite a lot of trees where Bravo and Echo was, and I had to kind of believe that Bravo was on the right tree. It looked about in the right place, and I was trying to do a small bit of tree counting, but I think that one was okay there. The last task, being Echo or 0, I think was a lot clearer, as it was the tree that was hidden behind the bush. And the 0 over by Foxtrot was a good little trick there, going on the second bush rather than the first one. And Alpha on its other tree was good as well, and it was actually quite an interesting opening task, trying to get us to identify which side of the path, trying to get us thinking a bit more, and yeah, it was really good. And now we will go on, as I've resized my screen already, to station 4.
Okay, we've got more trees. It's looking like similar, with a path to the right hand side with the bush. That tree, so that's the patch of 5 trees. That looks like it's Bravo. That tree round there could easily be Echo, I think it is. That tree looks like it's Charlie. That bush is Foxtrot. The tree right in front of us here, can I believe that's Alpha? Yes, I can.
So that was, again, another similar station 4. It's looking like all these tasks today are going to be very similar, although we may be thrown now with a different photo. But there was another good little bit of tree counting, and I don't think I put any 0s in that, so I think that might be interesting to see later. Slightly slower than the previous station, but I think it was just trying to make sure that I was actually counting all the trees correctly. But I don't think there was anything wrong with that station. I think that was very good. And we will now go on to station 5.
Okay, it is quite a different photo now. We've got the road, we've got the 2 trees in front of us. Alpha's on that junction. Is it on that tree? Can I believe it's on that tree? No, I believe that's the wrong tree. And I also believe that Charlie is too far away, but Foxtrot's definitely on that corner. But Bravo's not in that bit, and that's miles back. Although I am now doubting it, because I have just put 4 0s in one station, but I believe they were all fine. The first one I think was on the wrong tree. I think we could see the left 2 trees, just looking by the lines based on the road ahead of us, although that was a very difficult task. We then had on the line of grass in the middle, but I again think that Charlie or Delta, whichever one it was too far back for it to be in the centre of the circle. I think it was fine with Foxtrot on the left hand side. I think that Bravo was on the patch of trees rather than the bush, and I think the bush was hidden by some trees, possibly in the foreground. I can't quite remember. And I also think that that final task was just miles away from any of the controls, so I think that was also clearly a 0. So yeah, it was quite an interesting curveball, throwing 4 0s in, but we will see how that comes out, and we will go on to station 6. Okay, it's back to normal now. We've got the play equipment on the left with the black crosses, the benches. We want the 3rd tree along, and I believe that one is probably hidden, but I'm going to check that. 3rd tree along. No, it can't be hidden, can it? That's got to be Charlie. 2nd bit of play equipment in this area. Well, this is becoming a hard station, but I think that's Alpha. Paved area. Foxtrot's on the path, I believe. Is Delta on that tree? There's the 2 trees there, so I think it is. And is it that tree? No, it's the wrong tree.
So it was a lot slower station there. I think it was mainly on the first task and the second task, trying to get grips of the different bits of play equipment and also which tree it was. I ended up going in relation to the building and the bush in the background, but I think that one was fine as Charlie. Not completely sure, those who will go back and check that. And yeah, I think that last one being a 0 was quite a nice little trick, because Bravo was very clearly in the foreground, so any controls in the foreground, if it's going to be anywhere near there, you're very likely to put that control. But I do think that was a 0. I'm going to stick with that, and we will go on to station 7.
Okay, we've got stairs at the back with Echo, fence, there's 2 trees, stairs at the back. Is it the right staircase? Immediately is what I'm going for. I believe it probably is, because the other one would be the out of view. Charlie's on the corner. That looks like it's the wrong tree. That's the wrong staircase, and it's the wrong end of the spur. Now, I may have been too quick to go, that's the wrong staircase, but I believe it definitely was. And I thought, rather than just spend some time thinking about it, doubting it in my mind, let's just go with it. I'm going to stick with it. I probably have stuck with it anyway. And so rather than getting one wrong in a much slower time, I'd try and get either all right in a much quicker time or two wrong in a much quicker time, and hopefully that should work out okay for me. But other than that, I think that was a very interesting thing. Again, quite a few zeros, all three at the end there I believe were zeros, but we will go back and check that because definitely I'm not too certain. But that really was a nice trick with echo and zero if I have got it right. And we will go on to station 8. Okay, we've got the bush, we've got the path, we've got trees at the back, we've got 2 trees on the right with Foxtrot. That is behind, well, it's in front of us, too far away. Charlie, that copse is probably Delta. Southwestern bush will be Alpha, Echo there. That was another very quick station. The first zero task was a good one, being still in front of us, just far away, and they're trying to make you put Foxtrot on the tree. But I think the thing there was that there were 2 trees by Foxtrot, and there was only 1 tree really in the centre of the circle. So we knew we were in the wrong place there, and then the other 4 definitely seemed to match up nicely. The only one I'm tentative about was Delta or Zero, but it was in the copse. It seemed to be in the right side part of the copse. And yeah, that did seem to work out. And so yeah, we will now go into the final station of the day, station 9. And it's a similar area again with trees, bushes, the 2 paths now going through there, and looks like it's a diagonal one. That tree is a 0, that patch is a 0, that one is Bravo, that one is Charlie, and that tree there is Foxtrot. And it looks like we are finishing on my fastest station of 13 seconds, and we've got 190 seconds overall. And so actually is a similar time from some of the other days, but that was quite a tricky station to finish on with 2 zeros to start with. But I think they were all very similar apart from station 5, but we will get to that. We'll start with station 1. Now this was quite an interesting station to start with, and this very interesting task to start with actually. We want the northwestern tip of a thicket, and as you can see, Foxtrot is on a thicket sort of thing, but it's on top of the wall. And thinking that these walls are the black things, Foxtrot must be over here, and the thicket is actually behind it by this tree. So I believe that is clearly out the photo, and that one is clearly a 0 there. We then have the corner of a wall, and we want the southeastern wall, and we want the northwestern outside corner. And if we're believing we're on this path looking through, we have the path with the 2 bushes either side, and we want the right hand side and the first wall we come to, which brings us straight to Echo. So I think that one's good there. We then come across to near in the foreground, and we want the first tree that we come to from the path, and it's sort of in line with this wall. So that one does seem to be Alpha, although it does seem to be on the wrong side of Alpha. That is definitely within 5 meters, but I want it to be on the other side. So I'm now debating whether that is actually the correct tree, but I can't see what other tree Alpha would be on, and I can't actually see what other tree would be the correct answer. So I'm going to stick with that as Alpha, but I want the control description to be saying northwestern rather than southwestern, because it is definitely the southwestern tree, but it looks to me it's maybe on the western side actually rather than the southwestern. But I think that's fine with Alpha there. Then we want a tree this side of the path, and I think it actually might be this tree there as we're looking at it by the bush. And the reason it's not Bravo is on a tree the other side of the path, so it must be part of this white area there. So I think that one is clear as a 0. Nice quick one to do there. And then finally we come back to us, and we want the corner of open land, or we want actually the eastern part of open land. We want the northern side of the path, so it must be where Charlie is, and so the answer to that one is Charlie. So yeah, that was a good station to come in on. I thought that was a very interesting station to come in on, and really we just continued with the same sort of thing as we go into station 2, and we want the corner of a fence. And now I identified straight away that there was a fence here, but you can see it as we go down, and so if you follow it up, it must clearly be a fence, and it must clearly end where Charlie is. And so there is a southwestern outside corner where Charlie is, so it must be Charlie there. Other things to note as you come into this station though is the two paths, and these two paths do seem to work very nicely, and also the bush at the end of the corner with Delta on. So I think we are clearly in the right place, and so everything seems to lead to Charlie there. This second task did take a bit more thinking though, because Echo is on the fence, just is it at the right part of the fence, and with the area the other side of the fence being mapped as olive green, we can't use any of the detail within the fence, we have to use the detail outside of the fence. And the only thing that's giving it away to me is that there is this path running here, as we've said is this path, and it should be running to the left hand side of the control circle, or the control that we want, and as we go down it is going to the right hand side of the Echo kite. So the actual location we want must be miles like behind this tree with Foxtrot on it, so it must be a 0 as it's more than 5 meters away from Echo. I was then very quick with this one because that is the only tree really in this area, although there's another one being covered up by the control circle, but it's the first tree we reach and it fits with the bush and the other two bushes and the fence, so that one must clearly be Alpha there. And then we go across to the bush on the other side, and as we've already said from task 2, we know that Foxtrot must be on that bush there. And now this one took a bit more thinking, because as you can see the brown contour is covering the end of the bush, so to me the bush looks a lot shorter and should really be finishing about here. So that confused me slightly, but there is a small bit of green that pokes out the other side of the contour, and it is close to the corner of the fence that we've already answered as Charlie. So I am now very happy to say that one is Bravo, and I think that is a good task in itself. So yeah, overall it was a good station. I think the task with Echo was quite an interesting one. That's definitely why the 5 meter tolerance is there, just to sort of show that it's definitely too far away from the actual location. And yeah, it was another very interesting station. Station 3 I thought was a bit harder though, although I have done it slightly quicker. The first challenge was trying to work out which corner of open land we wanted, but we want the northeastern inside corner of the southwestern patch of open land in the circle. And so if we're taking these two patches of open land as these two across, we want the one the other side of the path to where we are, so it must be that one there. And so Charlie is in the northeastern inside corner, so I think that one must be Charlie there. We then get sent to the patch of trees at the back, and we need to identify one specific tree in the circle. Now one thing you can do this on is lines of trees, and I'm going to work diagonally I think as we go through. So we take the tree in the corner of the area and work back diagonally, so that is this tree, and then the next tree up, and then this tree next to the tree that we want. So if we take that tree and we go along the back line one more, we hit this white tree which is almost invisible in the photo, and it's got the Bravo kite on it. So I am very confident now to say that one is Bravo on the right tree, although I appreciate that took me a long time and that would have taken some of you potentially a long time, but I think that one is now clearly on the Bravo, so I have got that right. But we were then very quick to finish it off, taking 8 seconds across the final 3 tasks, which is good. The first one I clocked beforehand that Foxtrot was on the first bush here, or the second bush if we're including this one, but it's on the front one after the large gap, and we want the second one being the northwestern thicket, which is one that is just out the photo here. So I believe that is definitely a 0 as it's miles back over there. We then end up coming to the other side of the screen past where we entered Charlie before, and we want another tree in the circle, but this time it's going to be the other side of this less distinct path than all the paved areas paths, but you can just about see this muddy track here, and there are 2 trees either side of it, and we want the one to the other side of it to where we are. And these are the 2 trees. One is hidden by the lamppost very nicely, and the tree that we want is on the other side of that path, so that one must be Alpha there. And then finally we want this tree on the right hand side of this massive patch, and the only contender really is Echo. But why haven't I put Echo, why have I put 0? Because I believe that if we're going on diagonals again, these 2 trees are the 2 diagonal trees here, and the tree that we want you can just about see here, but it's hidden by the bush, so I actually want Echo to be just here instead, and so that one must be another 0. So it was a very interesting station to do. I think it was quite tricky to at speed recognise that Bravo's on the right tree, but I think that's a nice thinking task to try and slow us down a bit. I think that was good. And now we come into station 4 and we want a tree, and there are a lot of trees in the photo and there are a lot of trees in the map. So which tree are we actually going for? Now, first thing to notice is there are 2 buildings at the back of the map and there aren't any others. So these must be the 2 buildings that we can see, and things then start to match up with the paths that go through. And if we go from this path and we take this tree in front of us as the tree that is just here right in front of us, we then go along to the left of it and we can see there's this tree, and then move back and we get the tree with the Charlie kite on it. And then once we have that tree with the Charlie kite on it, we then move left again to Bravo, and then by moving left to Bravo we hit the tree that we want. So I believe that one is Bravo there. It's on the right side of Bravo to be that tree in the control description, and so I think that one is clearly Bravo there. We then want another tree, this time sort of in line with this path though, and you can see this bit of rounded bit of path on here is also this bit of rounded just here, and we want the bit just south of that rounded bit, which must be this tree that we come to here, because I believe that tree is a lot further in the background, being this tree there. So I believe that one is the Echo tree there, although that's the one I'm least certain on here, I believe. We then go to the tree that we have already talked about before, being Charlie. If we're coming from this tree and going 2 along, it works out to be Charlie. And then we come to a corner of a thicket and we want the southeastern tip of this thicket, and again using the path we've already used, we have this bit of thicket to the right hand side of us, right at the edge of the photo, and the southeastern tip of it must be the tip here, which Foxtrot does seem to be on, so the answer to that one must be Foxtrot. And then we hit possibly the hardest task in this station, and we want another tree, but I believe this one is definitely Alpha, working from this tree again, because this does seem to be the tree we use the most often in this station. We have this tree in front of the Charlie tree, and then we have this final tree here where Alpha is, so that one should be Alpha there, and that one should be a no zero station, which I think was very interesting. I think it was a fairly tough station, to be honest, but I think it was a good one to have no zeros in, which is great, although it definitely counteracts this next station, which I believe is definitely 4 zeros. Now I'm going to stick with it because I believe it's true, but I may be wrong and we'll see later. This first one is definitely the cruelest task of them all. We have 2 trees in the open land and we have a patch of 3 on the map, and we are asked to identify the right hand one. And now normally anyway these type of tasks are zeros, but how do we prove it? Now if we look at the map, we have this long bit of rough open land, which is this long bit of rough open land between the 2 roads there, and this bit of rough open land points to between the 2nd and 3rd trees. So if we are believing that Echo is the 3rd tree along, we want this patch of rough open land to point between these 2 trees, which it clearly doesn't. So instead this must be the 1st tree, this must be the 2nd tree, and the 3rd tree we want will be out the photo. So this one should be a 0, but I think it's definitely the hardest one, but it is definitely clear how to work it out, and so that one must be a 0 there. The second task is also a 0 in my opinion. I want the control to be about here by this 2nd rock furthest away from us, because it's about in line with the point of the other island of rough open there. Instead, quite a lot of you might have put Charlie because it does seem quite far back, but I'm definitely going to say that that one is a 0 because Charlie looks 5 meters away from the location that I want it to be. Then I was very quick with this one, as we've identified this triangle and the other triangle already being these 2 triangles. We know that Foxtrot must be on this corner, and so that one must be Foxtrot. I then had to do a small bit of checking whether I thought Bravo was in the right place here, but to me where Bravo is, it looks too far back to be on the light green. It must be on the dark green area there, and so the light green must be hidden behind this tree in that sort of wispy bit there, and so I want Bravo to be about there instead, and that one must be another 0. And then we were miles out the back, and quite a few of you might have easily put Delta for this, but if we're looking at it carefully enough, we have the 2 roads, one curves to the right, one curves to the left, and we want the road that curves to the left, which must be right back there behind this tree again, so that one is another 0. So yeah, it's the first time on camera I've managed to have a 4-0 station and gone with all 4 zeros, and I think it was very good use of the station and counteracted the no 0 station that we had previously. So I don't think there are too many zeros there because we've had a sort of thinning of zeros in other places. So it has been quite an interesting station there. and that was definitely a really tough station. It was hard anyway, probably without the zeros, but having the nerve to put 4 zeros, if you have done, is quite tough to have, and so very well done if you have done that. We then had station 6, and to me this was the hardest station. It definitely took me the longest time, 15 seconds more actually than any other station, and the most time was spent on the first 2 tasks, although quite a bit was spent on the 4th one as well. Now the first task, it was trying to get a grasp of whether we are on the 3rd tree along, but I believe we are now. If we take us to be stood back here, or we are actually stood right down here looking at it with this tree, and we look through between these 2 trees, we only hit 1 tree, and that is the tree that we want. And by looking through between the 2 trees that we want down here, which is the one that Bravo's on and this one that's got nothing on, we go through, we have the black cross of the play equipment on the left hand side, which is this one here, and we go through and we hit that tree. So I'm confident to say that is Charlie. I'm struggling to see a 3rd tree, unless it means that tree back there, possibly. That's probably it actually, now looking at it, but I am confident to say that is Charlie, and it seems to match up with the bush at the back and the building as well. So that one looks good there. We now have a black cross that we're going for, and we want the northwestern side of it, and I guess this is what potentially threw me a bit, identifying whether it is the correct black cross, because to me that seemed too far away, although now I'm clearly seeing that this here is the square of the sand pit, which is this square here, and it's only got 2 black crosses in it. And I guess the other aspect of this is that that black cross is bigger than 5 meters in feature, but is it on the right side? Well, with north going this way, northwest is sort of this direction, which it does look about the side which Alpha is on. So I'm happy now to say that Alpha is the correct answer to that task. We then want the northwestern inside corner of some open land, and it's whether Echo or Foxtrot is on that corner. But to me, Foxtrot is on the path in line with the tree that Charlie is on, and so if we use that to work down, we get the next bit of paved area that sticks in is this first bit of paved area here, and we want that inside corner. So I'm pretty sure that one should be Echo. And then we have Delta on another tree, but is it the right tree? It does look about right if we work up from these 2 at the bottom, which we will see in a minute. We have Bravo and the other tree, and then these 2 trees, which do seem a lot closer in the photo than on the map, but I'm willing to agree they're in the right place. But these 2 trees here, and then the next tree behind it is the tree with Delta on it, and it is on the correct side of that tree, so I'm willing to go with Delta there. And then this final task, we have these 2 trees which we've been working with before, but we want the one that's further away from us, so it must be that tree instead of the one that Bravo's on, and that one is a 0. So yeah, that was a fairly tough station, to be honest, getting a grasp of areas. I wouldn't be surprised if someone's done that very quickly though. I could have done that a bit quicker, but we will see what happens there. Station 7, I am however calling the hardest station of the day in my opinion, and it's mainly due to this first and the 4th tasks. Now why am I saying this? Because this first task is definitely one of the hardest to get a grasp of, but I'm going to try and do it now. We have this square of paved area with Charlie on it, and there is this square of paved area here that you can just about see, and you have the fence to the other side of it. Now we must be stood, although the heading is slightly off in my opinion, about here by this little indent of paved area with the bench on it, so looking over the hill. And by looking over the hill, if you draw a line from there through the paved area by the bush, you hit that foot of the stairs. But even now I'm being tentative because I'm now not completely sure that is the right foot of stairs. I'm sticking with it. I'm going to believe that it is. It did take me 13 seconds and it did take a lot of thinking, but I'm fairly confident to say that is definitely the right set of stairs, but we will see that later. And then we come down to the paved area that we have already discussed, and Charlie is on the right corner there, so I believe that one is Charlie. And then we're ending on another 3 zeros, the first one of which is here, and we want a tree. Now I had clocked from the start that if we are on this corner with the bench and the hill, then Alpha is on the left hand of these 2 trees, and we've just gone for the right hand of these 2 trees. Although I potentially would have put a eastern arrow in, or even a middle actually, because there's a 3rd one, but probably an eastern would have been less confusing to signify that it is the right hand tree. But I think it's also clear from the centre of the circle, so it wasn't completely necessary. But that one is a 0. I then went with this one very quickly as a 0 because I just thought I'm not going to think any more of it, but I am still pretty sure that that one is Echo. But I'm still pretty sure that the first task is Echo, and this second set of stairs must be outside the photo here, although there is a lot of bush there, so I'm now potentially doubting myself a bit, but I'm not going to say any more on that. I'm going to do that later, because that is a very hard task to try and grasp, and I may have made some mistakes, but we will see. And then finally, this slightly easier 0, we want the eastern part of a hill, and we've already said that we are here, so delta must be on the western part of the hill instead. So this end of the hill must be miles out of the photo, and that one is another 0. But yeah, this is definitely the hardest station of the day. I could have spent a lot more time on it trying to work it out, and I'm still not completely certain of the correct answer, although I am now potentially realising that I may have got that all wrong, and here is why. We have, on the back of the building, we have 4 canopy areas with indents in the building, or we have 3 that are these 3 here, and then the building stops, and the building stops there. So I have got this wrong, because the staircase for 71 is on the 3rd one in, and so that one must be on a staircase behind this bush, so that one is a 0, and then 74 must be echo instead on the 2nd one along. So yeah, that was a very tough task. I'm now actually not surprised I got that wrong, but it is training. We need to be looking out for this sort of stuff, and I feel like that's going to have fooled so many of you, but very well done if you got that right. That was a very tough task, but I am conceding that that one is now 0 and echo rather than echo and 0. But yeah, it's definitely a very tough station. This one did come out a bit easier though. If we have this first task being on a tree, is it the tree that Foxtrot's on? Because I think that's really the only contender here, because we have this bit of paved area going along the right hand side, which is on the right hand side of this tree. However, as much as we can see 2 trees here, which could be these 2 trees, A, they look very close together, and B, there is no thicket on this corner, but there is a thicket down here, and there is a patch of white woodland there, which could also be these 2 trees, and I believe it is, and I believe the tree that we want is actually this tree just there. So that one is a 0 because there isn't any controls that we can see behind this bush. We then have a bush on this sort of circular bit of paved area, and it must be on this end here, and you can also see the path a bit running through there, and we want the south tip of this bush, and Charlie does seem to be in the right place there, so I think that one is good as Charlie. And then we want the southeastern part of a copse, and I'm now more confident that that one is delta, being part of this copse area with the couple of trees, so I think that one is delta there on the right side. And then we want the end of a bush, and if we're following this bit round with the couple of bits of indent, and then we hit what seems to be a path there, although this may now be wrong, and I'm now thinking that might actually be wrong. So I think I've made another mistake here with alpha. I think it might actually be out the photo, because I can't see a path going between alpha and the bush there, and we want a bit of paved area going between the 2 bushes between there, and so I think it's actually this bit of open land going between the 2, and so I think this one might actually be 0 rather than alpha. So I think that is potentially another mistake there. So we're looking at 3 mistakes across the day, but I don't think that's too bad so far. And then finally we have the end of a bush, and as we've said before, echo is on a bush in this corner of the circle, so this one must be that end of the bush, and that one must be echo there. So yeah, that was another good station. Nice little trick with 84 with alpha being on the wrong bit, and I also think the positioning of Bravo sort of helped to throw a bit, but I think that was another really good station. And then finally we finish on my fastest station of the day, but I'm not counting out any mistakes here. We firstly want a tree on the patch of open land, and I don't know necessarily why this bit has been mapped as woodland instead, other than maybe the canopies up there, but looking at the directions of the path, we have a small bit of paved area right in the corner of this photo, which I'm believing is this path going there, and then this path is coming across this way going backwards to the left, so we must be here rather than the one up there, and we want the first tree the other side of it, which must be this tree here, which has nothing on it, and so that one must be a 0. We then go to a copse at the back, and it's the same copse that we had in this station for delta, so it's these 2 trees here, and notice the white patch of woodland slightly back is these trees there, which now delta is on instead, so delta is actually on this bit here instead of the bit behind it, and so this one must be a 0 as it should be on those green trees at the back. We then come out to the front, and we want the corner of this bit of woodland, and we want the south inside corner of this bit of woodland, Island and Bravo is there, as we've said before about this triangle being this area, so I'm happy with that as Bravo. And then we want the southeastern inside corner of this open land, and it's the corner after the path that we go round and we hit Charlie there. So I think that one is Charlie there. And then finally we have the distinctive tree, and if it's not the tree which Foxtrot is on, where is the tree that we want? It doesn't seem to really be anywhere there, so I'm happy to say that that one is Foxtrot. And so that was a nice little station to end on. So yeah, that was a very good day. There's a couple of tricks there near the end which did fool me, but I'm happy to concede that those were 3 mistakes at the end, and so we've got a score of 260, which doesn't sound too bad. We will see what position that leaves me in at the end of the day, but for now let's have a look at where I am to start with, and we are going to be in 6th place. So a similar place to where I was when I did it last time, but I did it a lot earlier last time, so I'm going to hold this position a bit more, maybe drop to about 20th instead, but we will see what happens when that comes in, and I will join you later for the overall results. And we are back, and you can see that I haven't actually slipped any places like I expected. We are still here in 6th place, although it's now joint 6th place with Aaron. Now firstly, well done to Christian for winning the event, 16 seconds ahead of Alessio, and then also Catherine in 3rd place as well, and Catherine being the fastest person with no mistakes, and possibly, at least for the top bit, the only person with no mistakes. So actually very well done to Catherine for managing that there. Looks like it was a very hard day, and everyone apart from Catherine seemed to be tripped up with 1 station. So let's have a look at the station percentages, because I'm expecting them to be a bit lower than yesterday now. The first station does mainly have the first task being the worst answered with 65%. Quite a lot of you going with Echo and Foxtrot instead of the right answer of 0, and still 78% is fairly high with the second task, with 597 of you realising it's Echo instead of 0, or some of you thinking it was Delta. So we will go have a look at those 2 there. And then we have station 2, and scrolling, it's looking quite green, but maybe the first, second and last tasks were the worst answered here. Yes, 94% for both the 3rd and the 4th tasks is very good, but 68% for the second task, with most of you going with 0 and 222 of you going with Echo. So that seems to be quite a clear trick there with that one. And actually the last task and the first task a bit had quite a spread of wrong answers, with quite a lot of you thinking it's Charlie, Delta or 0, and a few of you with Echo as well, instead of the correct answer of Bravo. Now I don't know whether there was any miscounting there. I'm trying to remember the station, I can't quite remember it at the moment, so we will go have a look at those 3 there. Then we have station 3, and we are scrolling, and it's looking very green really at the top, but the 3rd and 5th columns are looking the reddest, and yep, they are the 2 in the 60s for the percentages. Both of them were the 0s, and we had Foxtrot instead of 0 being the wrong answer for the 3rd task, and Echo instead of 0 being the wrong answer for the 5th task. So actually this was the one with all the tree counting, so very well done to most of you who managed to put Bravo, 80% of you for the very hard bit of tree counting for the 2nd task, but these 2 0s were quite hard, and they were ones where the actual place wasn't in view, so very well done for those of you that managed to get the answers right there. We'll have a look at those 2 again. Station 4 then comes down, and as it loads we scroll, and it's looking a lot redder. It looks like the first and the last tasks really might be the worst, and it's our first task today below 50%. 49% of you getting it right with Bravo, quite a lot went with Charlie, and a fair few of you also went with 0. So it looks like this was the station that had no 0s in it. As I said before, I think this was one of the hardest stations to be honest, and the percentages are looking like that is the case at the moment. But we were asked to identify that 1 tree by the path for the first task, and so I'm actually not surprised quite a lot of you did Charlie if you didn't count from the front of the photo like I did, but quite a lot of you managed to get Bravo with that, so that is very good. We also had some 60% across the other 3 tasks, most predominantly the 60% at the final one, which I said I thought was the hardest task in this station, but it's come out the 2nd hardest due to the statistics, with 455 of you getting it right with Alpha, but still 269 of you thinking it was 0 instead. So we will have a look at that station predominantly. Now this was the station that had 4 0s, so how many people managed to keep their nerve here. It's looking like really it was slightly better answered than the previous station. However, there was still 51% of you got the fourth task wrong, going with Bravo instead of 0, and I think that was potentially the hardest 0 in this part, so I'm not really surprised by that. And the first task, we only had 2 trees in the photo and we wanted a set of 3, so I'm not surprised there was a split between Echo and 0 there, and more often than not people managed to get that as 0 as well. So we will have a look at those 3 zeros predominantly, but most of you managed to get the final 0, which is very good. Station 6 then, and we will scroll when it loads, and we're going down, and it's looking like the final task might be the worst answered, although the first task is a bit redder and the third, but the final task was the worst answered, but still only 68% is a very high percentage. 518 of you went for 0 here and 223 went for Bravo. I think the fact that Bravo was right at the front of the photo definitely might have made some of you put it, but I think that one to me was clearly a 0. And the third task, identifying whether it was Echo or Foxtrot, although not many of you went for Foxtrot actually, most of you went for 0 as the wrong answer, but I believe for me it was identifying Foxtrot or Echo, and if Foxtrot's on the path then Echo's going to be on the first one forward, so I believe that one was clear to me that it was an Echo, but we'll go have a look at that one there. We then had station 7, and this is the one I made 2 mistakes on, as you can see there, so the speeds definitely helped, and it looks like those tasks really were very badly answered, and we actually only have 12% of you got it right with 0, which is very impressive, and this is showing me that this is definitely the hardest station of the day, which I think was very true from the start. So only 12%, being 95 of you, went for 0 here, so very well done to all of you, and it was clear that the common wrong answer, which is also the answer that I put, was Echo there with 597 of you. And then even as we revisited the stairs, only 40% of you managed to go for Echo here, and most of you went for 0 instead, and I know I definitely did because I was convinced it was Echo for the first one. But yeah, those were 2 very good tasks, and I think this has definitely made this station hardest, but there's always got to be a hardest station, and I think it was a very good one. And also the third task being 0, a lot of you went Alpha, and a few of you actually went Delta as well, but the clear answer for me there was 0, with 349 of you also agreeing with me. So we will have a look at those 3 especially, and station 8, there's a massive column coming here with Alphas in column 4, and a few with the first task as well. At 23%, this is definitely the standalone difficult task in this station. It's not quite as badly answered as the first one in the previous station, but 177 of you managed to get the right answer there of 0, with 473 going with Alpha, and actually 93 going with Bravo as well. There's a fair few of you, but that is really the only badly answered task in this station. They're all above 75%, so we will go have a look at that task when we go back. And then finally, this station is looking a lot better. It's mainly only the second task that was really the worst answered, but still 69% isn't very bad at all. 216 went for Delta, and 527 got the right answer of 0. So that looked like a much easier station to finish the day on. Let's go have a look at some of the mistakes that I made and some of the main mistakes that the rest of you made as well. Now, station 1, it was mainly the first few tasks that threw us here. I think this one obviously would have thrown quite a few of you, with Foxtrot being on a bush which is also on a wall, and the wall isn't the most clear wall here, but to me it's the first thing you hit when you come off the open land, so it must be the wall rather than the bush behind it. So I think that one is clearly a 0 there, as we've said before. And also this 0 being on the tree that we can't really see, although it is clearer now, it's that one there, rather than Bravo on the other side of the path. If you haven't spotted the path there clear enough, you would definitely think that one is Bravo, but to me that is part of the white woodland, so I'm happy to say that that one is clearly a 0. For this second station, there were quite a few low percentages here. The first task tried to identify if it's on a fence. I know it's not clear that there is actually a fence there with all the bushes, however, if we're looking at other parts of the map, we can see that these 2 paths and the junction do match up very nicely, and also the bush and the tree. So what else is going to be there other than the fence that it has been mapped at? And it does look like it's an uncrossable fence, so I'm happy to say that one is Charlie. This one threw quite a few of you, and I'm not surprised. It's just identifying how far along the fence it is, but I think it is clear that Echo is on the corner of the fence and so is even outside the control circle, so it's a long way away outside the photo there. And then this one we said before threw me a bit, to be honest, with the correct answer, because the contour does cover up the end of the bush, and the fact the contour is going in the same direction as the bush helps to do that. But I think it is clear that really Bravo, even if it's here on the end of the bush, is definitely within 5 meters of the center of the circle, and the control description definitely says thicket, so there must be a bush in the center of the circle, and so that must be what Bravo's on. So I think that one is good as a Bravo there. It was mainly the 2 zeros that were the worst answered here. I can see the controls missing from the screen there. So now Foxtrot has appeared, and many of you might have put Foxtrot straight away, but using the northeastern arrow in the control description, we know that it's going for the bush that's to the right of the bush that Foxtrot is on, rather than the bush that Foxtrot is on. So it must be a bush that's outside the photo, and so that one must be a 0. And similarly with this task, we want the furthest tree to the right of this massive patch of trees, and that is the one that's hidden behind the bush here. So it must be the one to the right of the one that Echo is on, so that one must be another clear 0. So yeah, I think those were mainly tricks that you need to be focusing on as they were throwing us left and right, so not too much there. A lot of you put Charlie for this one, however, and I can definitely see why. If you're not looking carefully enough at the base of the tree, you may think that the tree that Charlie is on the same sort of line in relation to the path as Bravo is, and also you can't see another tree to the left hand side of Bravo, so you may be wondering if Bravo is the right answer where this tree is, but to me it's obscured by the Alpha tree that is here, and as we look through it will be blocking our line of sight of the other tree, which will be possibly what's sticking out here, which looks like is merging with the tree that Alpha is on. But as we said before, if we work from the front of the path, we know that this tree is the front one, and then the 2 in the line here are these 2, the back one has Charlie on it, and then we go to the left of it, so that one must be Bravo there. And we have said before about this final task being Alpha. I definitely think it was a hard final task to work with, but I also think if we've identified these first few trees, we know that this triangle of 3 here must be these 3, and Alpha is on the one on the left, so I'm happy to say that one is Alpha there. We then had this 4-0 station, and it was mainly the first 3 zeros. This 0 was answered very well, so well done to all of you there. But these 3 zeros, the first one is identifying whether we can actually see the right hand 2 trees or the left hand 2 trees, but I think I've clearly said that this patch of rough open land is meant to point between the right hand 2 trees, and it doesn't point between these 2, so these 2 must be the left hand 2 trees, and we want the tree out the photo to the right hand side, so I think that one is clearly a 0 there. And this one really, it's trying to tell whether Charlie is far enough down the line, and to be honest it's pushing the boundaries of the 5 meters, but I do think it is definitely 5 meters away. As I've said before, I want it maybe just after the second boulder there, in line with the end of the point of this road, so I think that one should be about there. And I definitely think if we took a ruler to the map and worked out where this lamppost is, it would definitely be more than 1.25 millimeters, which is 5 meters on the map, so I am happy to say that that one is a 0. And this one, I'm not surprised fools so many of you, because it's quite hard to see the lighter green in the circle, although there's a bigger patch here to prove that there is some, but we want the edge of the lighter green rather than the darker green, and we can't really see the lighter green, although I'm presuming it's in the zoom circle about there, and Bravo is on a patch of trees, but to me that is definitely the darker green as we're looking at it, and it does seem to be too far away from the road for it to be right there in the centre of the circle, so I was happy to say that that one is too far away from the correct location, and that one is also a 0. But as I said before, you really need to hold your nerve to be able to get that one right. It was a very difficult task, and it feels very weird to be putting 4 zeros, a lot weirder than putting no zeros in the previous station, so I think well done to any of you that managed to get all of those right there, or even some of them to be honest. Station 6 was mainly the third and the last task, I believe. This third task, I'm surprised so many of you zeroed this one, but maybe you thought it was meant to be on this bit here with the first bench rather than the second bench, but to me Foxtrot is clearly on the path, which we've already used for the Charlie task, and we want the first notch down after that, which is the notch that Echo is on, so I think that one is definitely Echo. And we've said before about Bravo being very clearly in the foreground, so I'm not really surprised quite a few of you put Bravo there just really quickly. However, it is clearly on the wrong tree. We want the middle tree in the circle, which is this one, which is the one that's further away from us in this patch of 2, and Bravo is on the closer one, so that one is also very clearly a 0. And now we move on to the first few that I got wrong, and I think this one now is a lot clearer to me that this one is a 0 and 74 is Echo. Because of these sets of balconies, we obviously have the 1, 2, 3 that we can see, and the end of the building is there. So if we're going with the end of the building, we want 1, 2, 3. So we want to set a staircase that leads to this set of balconies, and this staircase leads to the second set instead. So it must be a staircase behind the bush, and that must be a 0. Before we get to 74 though, this one, quite a few of you put Alpha and a fair few put Delta. To me, I'm not surprised a few of you put Delta, because it could easily be within 5 meters, but I still think if you put a ruler to the map, it would be 1.25 millimeters away at least. And Alpha is on a tree, so is it the right tree? We've established there's 2 in the photo near the hill, and there's only really 2 on the map near the hill, so we must be looking at the right 2, and so Alpha's on the left hand one and we want the right hand one. So there is no control on the feature, so that is definitely a 0. I'm still not surprised a few of you put Delta though, but I think that is just about far enough away. Just remember there is a bit of depth issue potentially with these photos, so that tree might actually be a lot further away than you are potentially perceiving it. And then we've said before about these sets of balconies, and I should have noticed this better in the competition, but that is the way it goes sometimes. We want the southeastern end of the stairs, which is the bottom of them, and we want it on the second set of balconies, which must be the staircase that Echo is now on, so that one is Echo. So sometimes being confident that you've got answers right beforehand is good, but sometimes it doesn't quite pay off, and it hasn't quite paid off here. But I also think if you can stick with it, and again holding your nerve like the 5th station, but I think if you're going to get it wrong quickly, and that is definitely what I did with the 4th task here. Not so much with the 1st task, but I think that's the way it goes, and we all make mistakes sometimes, as we say. I made a few yesterday as well, but again, we are training and we learn. And then this station, this one was fairly well answered. To me, there is definitely 2 trees in the area that we want, and there are 2 trees here, but they do seem quite far away. And also, where is the bush on this corner that we want with Echo on it? And then we look and we see that there is a bush there on the right corner, and these 2 trees have been mapped as the woodland. So I think that one is clearly a 0. And actually this one that I have got wrong is a lot clearer to be a 0 now. Alpha must be on this bush here instead, and Charlie and Bravo on this bigger patch of thicket just here, and then the gap between the 2, which looked like the gap with the path that could run through it, although we can't see a path now, is the gap with the open land in it. So we actually have the path running out the photo, and then another bush even further round which should have the control on it, so that one is clearly a 0 there. And then finally with this station, we've said before with this slightly less well answered task that if we remember from this station that we have the Delta kite on the coniferous trees here, and then we move to 92, and we also have a task on the coniferous trees in the same location, but now Delta has moved to these other trees, which must be the other patch of white. So it's on the wrong patch of white, and that one is another 0. So yeah, overall there were some very difficult tasks today. Station 7 was clearly the hardest station, with this task being the worst answered of the day, only 12% of you. But I don't think there's anything wrong with there being 1 or 2 tasks where only a few of you actually managed to get it right. It definitely separates the very great from the great, and today it looks like I fell foul of that task, but that is the way it goes. And so now, with 2 days gone, let's have a look at the overall results for the event so far, and they are not available yet, so I'm presuming they are actually still being calculated, and we will have a look at this in another video, and I'll try and stick it on at the end on another day where we can definitely see a couple of the standings as we go. But for now, we're still waiting on them, and we will have to end the video there. So thank you very much for watching the video again today. If you would like to like and subscribe to the channel, as always, it just makes sure that you don't miss any videos that I release, and it also helps me out with the channel. It helps YouTube share all the content, and also make sure that you're sharing the video yourself. Let's try and hit this target of 1,000 people to compete in one of these events by the end of this week, and also make sure that you're commenting below below any extra points that you think I've missed from the video and anything that you want me to add to these videos. They are quite long, so I don't know what else really to say in them. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be a very interesting middle of the week as we go, and I will join you again tomorrow for the third day of the TORUS training week.